Moving on.
Yes.
Shall we talk about AFC North team needs?
What do you think?
Got nothing better to do.
All right, let's do it.
Cincinnati Bengals.
One of the more consistently good, not great teams in the NFL.
If you look at this, the easy joke is they could really use a quarterback.
Yeah.
And yet they're...
I think we said that last year, too.
Yes.
I think we did.
And they answered by recommitting to Andy Dalton.
So aside from quarterback, which they're probably not going after.
You look at this is a pretty well-rounded roster, but one thing they really failed to do last year was rush the quarterback.
Yes, they did. Loss of Michael Johnson was big
and
on
so
that.
they really need a right defensive end. Wallace Gilberry, a fun name.
Oh, great name.
A great guy to kind of fill in on limited snaps, but is not the guy that you want starting. So I think that's you want an elite pass rusher.
Yes, you do. Because Carlos Dunlap has the other side absolutely locked down.
Fun fact, J.J. Watt and Justin Houston both had more sacks individually than the entire Bengals team last year.
They need to improve upon that. Because it's not a great quarterback situation. I mean, I'm just talking about Cleveland, actually. No, I'm sorry.
And then outside of quarterback and defensive end, they could really use a new offensive guard.
Yeah, they need to build the interior of their offensive line and depth on the outside of the offensive line.
Yeah, they've got Andre Smith and Andrew Whitworth, but free agency's looming for them. They need to either re-sign or they might be facing a situation where they're going to need to groom their successor.
It's almost a situation where maybe they go after an offensive lineman who perhaps will fall because of injury or something like that and give him a year to develop, and then he can step in.
Maybe that collegiate tackle who can move to guard for a year and then you can groom him to be a right tackle, something like that.
All right, next up.
Next up would be the Cleveland Browns, because I feel like going about
Hold
this.
on, I'm going to stretch.
Yeah.
We need some time for this.
And like Cincinnati, you can joke, hey, they could use a quarterback. Brian Hoyer is a free agent.
Right.
And Johnny Manziel.
So they invested last year in the draft in quarterback, and they've already invested this offseason.
They've invested too much in quarterback, so they're probably not going to do it in this year's draft.
So outside of that.
So let's talk about the big thing, wide receiver.
Wide receiver.
Josh Gordon, not going to be playing this year.
Right.
And we talked about it with the mock draft, addressing wide receiver and also defensive line.
I'd actually like to see them not even worry about receiver at this point.
Yeah.
If you don't know who's going to be throwing and you probably know they're not going to be all that successful, figure out places where players can be successful.
Sure, I think that. And one of those places would be the interior defensive line.
Yes.
They had 11 different starting D-line combinations in 2014. They need some consistency and talent in the middle of that D-line. And then how about cornerback? Buster Skrine is a free agent. He's really good.
Very good.
And then last year's top draft pick, Justin Gilbert, massive disappointment.
Right.
And this isn't just the usual like rookie cornerback shakes. Like he was not even getting on the field.
He was defensive Manziel without a lot of the issues, but they knew something about, like, for whatever reason, he was not ready to play.
And then how about another pass catcher? Tight ends, Jordan Cameron looks to be leaving in free agency.
A surprise star for the Browns.
They got some needs. They got the draft picks, but they got some needs to fill.
All right, next.
Oh, how about the Pittsburgh Steelers?
How about them?
Excuse
me. How about them, Sonny?
The thing that jumps out about the Steelers is this is an offense that scores points.
Yes,
averaged 31 points per game over the last half of the season.
They've been very much plug and play.
And when you've got Ben Roethlisberger and you've got Le'Veon Bell and probably the most talented wide receiver in the NFL last year, Antonio Brown, just super consistent. But they do need a backup running back. Le'Veon Bell was a workhorse, but then they really worked. You
cannot count on running back health.
You can't do that without a reliable backup. And Dre Archer is just too small to be.
He's a smaller, situational type back.
Yeah, he's a scat back.
A scat back.
And then outside linebacker. Jarvis Jones got one side locked down.
God, is he good.
He's really good.
Yeah.
On the other side, though, they had to turn to James Harrison, who will be 37 soon, and
Watch
he's a free
your
agent.
mouth.
Yes, and he's gonna hear me say this.
He will. No.
Yeah, he'll find me, and that's my own problem to worry about.
And behind outside linebacker.
The Steelers' problem to worry about is that position because they need some youth and talent.
And they've traditionally drafted very well in the front seven.
Yeah, they have, and they just need to draft those players.
Yes, and behind that front seven, what are their issues there?
The secondary.
Yeah.
And it's time to finally shed some of the aging pieces.
It is. They've given him a ton.
Any Steeler fan will go on and on about how much they dislike Ike Taylor and how much they love Troy Polamalu, but it's time to move
2006,
on.
Troy Polamalu,
When the Steelers are saying, we hope you retire so we don't have to cut you.
You legendary Hall of Famer safety, we love you.
So they've got players penciled in as starters. Cortez Allen and William Gay at cornerback, and then Mike Mitchell and Shamarko Thomas.
Great name.
Shamarko. But they don't know if Shamarko Thomas is going to be the answer at strong safety, and Mike Mitchell a disappointment at free safety.
Give yourself some options.
So they're going to want some more options in the secondary.
Let's round out the North.
That would be the Baltimore Ravens. I just bounce around randomly.
All-star drafters. The
they're
Ravens.
So good. They always get that undervalued defensive piece late in the first round.
Terrific at evaluating.
Year after year after year. So their biggest needs, though, are on the other side of the ball. Tight end, Owen Daniels, free agent. Dennis Pitta keeps injuring his hip.
Yep. As golden retrievers do.
Yes, it's something about the breed.
Yeah, it is something about the breed.
And then wide receiver Steve Smith, 36 years old, and he really, after a blazing start, really fell off the second half of the season.
That'll happen.
Torrey Smith looks like he's going to be leaving in free agency. And you want an option so that, Marlon Brown is not your starting wide receiver.
That would probably be for the best.
And then defensive end Timmy Jernigan is great.
Oh, he's really good.
And then, but it looks like Pernell McPhee, who's super talented and gave him great depth, 7.5 sacks on limited snaps last year.
Right.
You just want to refresh that pool.
Yeah,
and I'm sure the Ravens are way ahead of me on this. But
the Ravens are terrific, not just at drafting, but realizing which free agents they can afford to let go and where they feel comfortable replacing. And it appears along that front seven, they are quite comfortable.
And then in the secondary, the Ravens, their weakness last year was their cornerbacks could not stay healthy. They put, I think, at least 5 on injured reserve.
Build that depth.
Jimmy Smith is great, but he injured his foot. Ladarius Webb has had injury problems as well.
Yep.
There's talent there, but they need to refresh it. Refresh that little talent.
I don't like you doing this. This is a very weird motion for you to be doing, talking about the Ravens.
Refreshing a pool.
Please never do that ever again. But yeah, the Ravens are in good shape.
As it is, we're done talking about AFC North, and in fact, we're done with the entire episode of Future Consideration.
We are indeed. Another great one.
So thank you for watching. Until next week, have a good one.